Hello and welcome back to Coffee Interview. My name is Coffee Iman, and today I have a special guest with me, Miss Johnson. Can you tell everyone who may be listening who you are?
Yes, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Tara Johnson. I'm originally from Joliet, Illinois. Coffee and I went to high school together, so glad to be reconnecting. I am, in terms of work, I am a culture communications consultant. I also am an executive coach, so I do a number of things, but I would say, in short, I'm super passionate about employee experience and about culture engagement and essentially just making sure that people have positive workplace experiences. So happy to kind of chat about that a bit more, but that's kind of in a nutshell the space that I'm in.
So explain to us how you started your company called Radical Redefinition. Is I'm saying that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So how I started my company. So let's see, I had, let's say, about 13, 14 years or so of just working in-house, working in companies, doing a number of different things. So, I started my career doing recruiting and then transitioned to career development work where I was coaching people on career exploration, job search strategy, pivoting careers, and then eventually transitioned into working in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and employee experience, and community outreach, and social impact. And then that continued to spiral. And so, well, not spiral, but then moved on to doing
Right.
what's called employee experience. So then I was working on programs around employee well being, around onboarding, internal community building. So again, pretty extensive career of just working in a number of different spaces within HR. I was unexpectedly laid off.
Oh my goodness. As we are always.
Right? Yeah, I was unexpectedly laid off from a job. And that really, I just took a moment to pause and say, okay, Tara, so, what do we want to do from here? Now, I could jump back in and, get another in house role, or could this be an opportunity to really chart my own path now at this point? After that, I just, started to experiment with freelancing. And so I started working with different companies all around the work that I had been doing all those years in house, but now being able to work with different companies from different industries that I hadn't worked with before, but also now being able to convey and share this knowledge and these insights,
Right.
for other companies that maybe had not thought about the strategies that, other companies that I've worked with had done before. And we're looking for best practices and looking for those, insights, etc. And so I was just kind of, like I said, experimenting and just trying to figure out if that was something that, I was interested in, and kind of, if I did, where I might want to focus. And so it was just over time of just, putting myself in different positions and just trying different things out. And then after about 4 years, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna continue to do this. I think this is it. So let's make it official. And at that point, I gotten a lot of clarity about, the types of clients that I really enjoy working with, the types of projects, because as I mentioned, I've done a lot of different things. So a big part of that was also to trying to figure out, well, do I want to focus in a particular area or two, or just do
Right.
it all, right? And be this kind of generalist. And so, yeah, over time, like I said, of just trying to figure it out, this time last year, I decided it's time. So, common thread is that, my goal is, how can we radically redefine the workplace? Whether companies were ready for this conversation or not, it was happening because
Right.
workforces were changing, right? Everyone's moving from working, in person to remote, thinking about the ways in which they were communicating with their employees, thinking about the different person, or not perks, but just benefits and just flexibility and just various work arrangements. But then also we saw, or continuing to see, the great resignation. And a lot of what's
Right.
driving that is that employees are saying,
I
enough,
can't do it.
I can't do it.
Right.
Yeah. And, and kind of saying, my well-being matters, being
Yeah.
happy matters, having balance matters, this flexibility matters. And, it's time
Yeah.
to do something about it. And so
So
now,
a lot of times
yeah,
I wanted to jump in because you mentioned HR. So a lot of times no one speaks about that transition from going employed into entrepreneurship. So how was this switch for you financially?
Ooh.
Because I mean, you were working in a real predominant field that was needed, and so it should have been easy for you to pivot back corporately. So how was this change financially?
In terms of, tell me more. I might
Like,
know where you're going with it, but tell
yeah,
me more.
yeah. Was it a con? Was it a challenge? Um, was it much motivation
Okay. Well,
financially to make that switch because you were comfortable?
yeah. Well, I like to be real, with people about it's just enlightenment about experiences. And the reality is that, when you decide to strike out on your own, a lot of times people are like, okay, I'm going to make all this money, or, you want to
Right.
replace your full time salary. And you can do that, but it just sometimes may take time. And so, and also, I think depending on how you enter into entrepreneurship. And so, if it's something where you're planning it out over time and maybe you're working full time or part time, but while you're also building your business, right? I think it can look different, financially for different people. I think for me, it was more of just like I won't say impulse, but more of just, okay, let's just try this out. Let's just take this risk. And so I can't necessarily say that it was something that was planned. Because like I said, I was laid off and it was like, well, okay, well, let's figure something else out. So, it takes time. But I think one of the things that's amazing and what I love about it is that I get to name my own prize. I get to,
Yeah.
I really am in the driver's seat and getting a chance to really drive what my financial, future looks like, and that's a very empowering feeling.
Well, what did you find out when you started building these, I guess, programs for companies or building
Mhm.
this structure for them? What did you find was missing, or what did you find was the biggest gap
Mm.
in the employer versus employee dynamic?
The first thing that comes to mind is perhaps not really having a full understanding or a pulse on the employees, like how they feel,
Hmm.
right? So, in short, essentially, not really understanding employees, not really listening or maybe taking the time, whether it's through surveys, whether it's through focus groups, etc. I think, sometimes these programs and initiatives are created because someone at the top feels like this is a great idea, or this is
Okay.
something that needs to be done, or you're seeing other companies do it and it's working very well for them. But maybe that's not what your employees need. Maybe that's not what they want. Maybe that's not, really truly addressing the issue. And so I think a big disconnect is maybe not developing programs and developing communications, really keeping your particular audience in mind.
Okay. So, what advice would you give someone applying for positions? Because my opinion, I've noticed even when I used to be on the job hunts, that I
Mm-hmm.
will go somewhere and they'll say, "Oh, this is how this should look." And for this particular job, this is how your resume should go. And then you go to another person that helps, and this is how this resume should go. And then I always say, well, what if the things you're taking out or switching isn't right for this corporation that you're applying for? And how am I supposed to know what they're looking for based on their job description? Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stuff may be general. So what advice would you give someone job searching that can kind of navigate through that to reach, the programs you have, or to reach the employers, and get their attention based
Mm-hmm.
on what's generally said
Yeah, you're
to
right.
apply?
Yeah, because you'll get a lot of different advice, and sometimes it can be hard to figure out. Okay, is there any really one right way? And the answer probably is no. But I would say my answer ties back to kind of what I was saying right before, which is know your audience. So, you know, they're going to be different just as much as you have different recruiters or people, career coaches giving you different advice. You're going to have different employers that look for different things and value different things. And so I think the most important thing is, trying to get a feel for who's your audiences. So if you're targeting a particular company, what is it that they value? What is it
Got
that they're
it.
looking for, right? So try to really get a sense of their culture, whether it's through their, the information that they post on their website. A lot of companies are building what's called culture decks, where they're,
Mm.
be, one memo, one page to, I just looked at one today that's 128 pages, where they outline, this is
That
our
company's
culture.
culture, yeah.
Yeah, this is what we value. These are the types of people that we look for. This is the mindset that if you come on board here, that if you have this, you will likely be successful. This is how we drive our business, etc. Right? So try to get that type of intel and insight, and that can help to kind of shape your overall approach. And also, if you're able to connect with someone, so relationships are everything, right? And just
Right.
building your network, and we don't get anywhere, by ourselves. And so a big part
Thank you
of,
for saying that.
so you can have a, bomb resume and LinkedIn profile, but also
Yes.
so do
So
many other
many
people.
people
But to
think,
have that connection, right? To have somebody
mhm,
that can help you, whether it's making introductions, referring you, etc. And so, if there are people that work within that organization that can be helpful to you in
okay.
shaping what narrative you have on your resume, on, a cover letter, but also when you're in an interview, here are the things you should be saying, here are the things you should be really emphasizing, because that's what we look for. I
Right,
think
right.
those are ways to do that. So there is no like one right answer or no cookie cutter approach. Sorry to say, but that would be what I
Well,
would
that is
recommend.
advice in itself because people will tell you that it is. So it takes work because that's how much you work, you're gonna have to put in once you get hired. So
Yeah,
that's still good advice, even if it's not what they want to hear.
I hope so.
So for yourself, do you like to tell people you're woman owned or that you're black owned? Is there something that you categorize your company in when you're looking for assistance or getting more clients?
Yeah, yeah. So yes, I do like to market the fact that I'm, a woman, and that I'm African American. I think there are some companies that are specifically looking to work with people of diverse backgrounds, and so I think that certainly helps to amplify that. But I think for me, the way that I market and the way that I look to connect with my customer is more of, do we have aligned values, right? So when I approach employee experience, when I approach, communications, this is the way that I approach it. So if you look at my website, I talk about, I create stories, narratives, strategies that are
Mhm.
human, right? That are authentic, that are engaging, that resonate in a real way. So if you're on board with that, right? And then
Mhm.
we have a conversation, and I tell you, like, and people ask, okay, well, how would you approach this particular situation? If you were hearing this from employees, or if you were drafting, this comm strategy, or this messaging, what will your approach be? And so again, it would be right in line with what I just shared. And so if there is that like values alignment, then
Got it.
that's that. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that is.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes people just go way left and they go with someone that they're not aligned with, and then the work partnership becomes very toxic, or they
Mhm.
battle out over petty things, and it's like, well, the main part isn't lining up, so you can't agree on a strategy. So
Right.
I mean, that makes sense to me. Like I
Mhm.
said, a lot of stuff people don't want to hear because they may be doing it completely wrong. But these are things they should take into mind when dealing
Mhm.
or forming partnerships. Now, when you said you previously, and I read that you do have partnerships.
Mhm.
What does that process look like? Is it more client based, or do you have to go 50-50 down the line on strategies and the way you want to do things in business for that
Hmm.
particular partner?
Yeah. So I have. So I kind of look at it and approach it in a couple of ways. So um, as an entrepreneur, right, and anything that any clients or work that I'm doing under Radical Redefinition, there are times where I will partner, with another consultant. So I may just focus on the communications piece of it, and then my partner may focus on training and, maybe some other employee touch points. And so in those instances, it's really about just kind of bringing our subject matter expertise together and just aligning on, costs and et cetera. And so it kind of just boils down to, well, how much work are you putting in? What's your role, and for your raise versus that. So it's kind of each of us being compensated for, our involvement. There are other partnerships that I have where I work with organizations as a contract consultant or contract coach. So one organization that I absolutely love and that I work with, it's called Bravely. And so it's an external coaching platform. And what they do is that they partner with companies, across the globe
Okay.
to offer a wellness benefit to their employees. And so what that means is then all of their employees at their company can set up one-on-one, professional coaching sessions with
Okay.
somebody like me, and get and get support. And so, the partnership there is that I get to just come in and do what I do best. But on the business development side, that's something that the business development, the marketing piece, some of the more, let's say, administrative client management things, that organization, that partner takes care of. And so I just get to slide on in and just like do what I do best. Right. But then, like I said, the first arrangement that I talked about, where if it's something under my company and my brand, then, there is, depends on the situation, but a lot of times, I am owning, the business development. I'm owning the
You're
client
owning all the
management.
pieces.
I'm owning all the pieces in addition
Okay.
to the work as with a partner. So hope that helps.
Yeah.
I'm doing
So,
all the things.
so another piece we would want out of you is like, what advice would you give to someone trying to step out in that same lane? Because you hear people all the time giving their self titles, I'm a consultant. But actually, what does that take to be a consultant? Like, you can't just say, oh yeah, I had a conversation, I'm a consultant. So what advice would you give someone to, I guess, gather the pieces so they can be powerful in that particular field?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me pause and gather my thoughts, because the first thing that comes to mind, I think that I really want to speak to, is imposter syndrome.
Okay.
And you would be surprised, while people are calling themselves, right, consultants and etc., and that might feel like, okay, people are just like, yeah, I'm an expert in this is that. More times than not, people struggle with imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Right. And so they're discounting themselves when they have all this experience, all of this knowledge, all of these accomplishments, right? All of these receipts to show you know what you're talking about. You can do this work and you can help other organizations do that, or other people. But we get in our heads, we overthink, we discount ourselves. We're looking at somebody else and looking at what they're doing and
Got it.
their resume compared to ours. And so I would say that probably my biggest advice would be to just don't discount yourself and don't get so caught up in, well, do I have enough experience and expertise? You ask yourself, okay, do an honest evaluation of, what's your experience today? What have you done? What's the impact that you've been able to help drive in this particular area that you want to strike out in? And, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe that even if, in a new environment with a new type of client, do you feel and know that you'll be able to rise to the occasion and you'll be able to deliver just like you have in the past? And so, there's a number of ways, you can go with this whole conversation about how to prepare and what to know and what to do, as you're striking out, working independently, whether that's on contract or as a consultant. But I think if that mindset isn't there, it's going to be difficult to
move forward.
So that would be my advice, is to
Okay.
build up here, own it, know who you are, know what you're doing, get out there, and then the rest, you'll work through that.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking this time out, because I know you're busy, because we haven't seen each other in like
20
ages.
years. Right.
But I'm so glad you were able to hop on and give some people some gems and some comments about your experiences that you've had. It was very helpful. It was helpful for me. Hopefully everyone else wrote down a couple of things they needed to know. So make sure you contact Miss Tara Johnson if you have questions about her expertise, which she has a long line of them. So basically, if you need coaching on your business, or I don't know, do you do life coaching too?
So a lot of the coaching work that I do kind of falls into that area. So
If you need a little help with that, she may be able to direct you in the right way. So thank you so much for joining me. Hope you had a good time. It was my pleasure.
thank you.
Wish you all nothing but the best.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for
Thank you so
joining
much.
us.
Thank you so much for having me.